The photographer counted down. 3, 2, my mother's foot shot out quick as lightning, catching my ankle perfectly. I pitched forward, arms windmilling desperately, straight into the waiter carrying the wine service. Time slowed to amber. Red wine arced through space like droplets of blood, each one catching the chandelier light before gravity claimed them. The sound of shattering crystal echoed sharp and final in the sudden hush. 200 wedding guests gasped in unison as I hit the cold marble floor, my bridesmaid dress soaked and clinging to my skin like a second shame. The camera flash fired with a cruel pop. The perfect moment of humiliation preserved forever in digital memory. My palms stung against the marble. Wine seeped through the polyester fabric, cold and sticky against my legs. The ballroom smelled of Dom Perignon and expensive perfume, now tainted with my public disgrace. Oh my goodness! My mother knelt beside me in a flutter of silk and concern, voice sweet as honey, but eyes glittering with the satisfaction of a job well done. Her manicured fingers grasped my arm, just tight enough to leave marks under the fabric. Alicia, sweetheart, are you all right? You must have tripped on your dress. Madison, the bride, resplendent in her $15,000 gown, covered her mouth with her diamond-heavy hand. The gesture looked spontaneous, concerned. But I caught the flash of teeth behind her fingers. She was smiling. Poor Alicia. She's always been like this. Her bridesmaids tittered softly, a sound like wind chimes made of breaking glass. The photographer, still crouched with his camera, looked uncertain whether to keep shooting or help. He chose the camera. More flashes, more evidence. Gentle laughter rippled through the ballroom, like a stone dropped in still water. Whispers spread from table to table. Pitying glances. The crash of crystal still echoed in my ears, mixing with the sound of my own heartbeat. Just clumsy Alicia, always ruining everything. Poor thing can't even stand properly for a family photo. I looked up through wine-darkened hairdrops still falling from the chandelier above like tears, and caught Madison's eye. For one crystalline second, her mask of concern slipped. A cold, predatory smile flashed across her perfect features, before vanishing like summer lightning. She knew what she'd set in motion. I knew she knew. And finally, after 22 years, I was ready to finish it. The smell of wine mixing with gardenias and expensive perfume. The sound of my mother's performance, every syllable calculated for maximum effect. The chandelier sparkling overhead like a constellation of lies. All of it familiar, all of it scripted, all of it ending tonight. Christmas morning when I was 12. Madison opened her third gift, a silver laptop. I held a cookbook from the dollar store pages, yellowing, spine-cracked. Alicia doesn't need much. My mother said, fingers threading through Madison's hair with tenderness I'd never felt. She's not materialistic like some children. Around us, cousins showed off tablets, jewelry, designer clothes. My cookbook felt heavier with each passing moment. Dad watched from his armchair, mouth opening as if to speak, then closing. When I showed him a cookie recipe later, he smiled and ruffled my hair. That's nice, sweetheart. But his eyes drifted toward Madison's laptop, where she video chatted with squealing friends. My 10th birthday party. Pink cake with delicate sugar flowers sat in the dining room center like a castle. I stood behind it, 10 candles flickering, friends clustered around. Make a wish, Sarah called out. Before I could finish thinking, Madison's hip checked the table. The cake crashed to the floor in an explosion of pink frosting. I sobbed. Alicia, my mother snapped. Don't be dramatic, it's just cake. Madison didn't mean it. Madison's lip trembled convincingly. I'm so sorry, Em. Just an accident. But through my tears, I saw her reflection in the hall mirror. That satisfied smirk spreading across her features when she thought no one was looking. You're allergic to chocolate, aren't you, sweetheart? Mrs. Johnson asked at Tommy's birthday party. Her kind face creased with concern as she held out a plate of brownies. I nodded automatically, the lie so practiced it felt true. Around the birthday table, 8-year-olds devoured chocolate cake and brownies, while I sat with a plain sugar cookie watching their faces light up with each bite. Such a shame. Mrs. Johnson murmured to my mother. She's missing out on one of childhood's greatest pleasures. My mother's hand landed on my shoulder, her squeeze just a touch too tight. Alicia's learned to find joy in other things. Haven't you, dear? 3 years. 3 years of birthday parties where I sat empty-handed while children my age experienced pure chocolate bliss. 3 years of believing my body was somehow defective, that I was missing some fundamental piece that made others whole. The truth came by accident when I was 15. Madison left a chocolate bar on the kitchen counter, and curiosity finally overcame years of conditioning. I broke off a small piece, hands trembling as I placed it on my tongue. The sweetness that exploded across my taste buds was a revelation. Rich, complex, nothing like the bitter medicine I'd imagined. No hives, no swelling, no reaction except pure, unadulterated pleasure. I ate the entire bar standing in the kitchen, tears streaming down my face. Not from allergic reaction, but from the weight of understanding. 3 years of watching others eat cake while believing I was forbidden. 3 years of a lie so casual, so unnecessary, told simply because they could. High school graduation. I stepped up to receive my valedictorian medal, searching the audience for my mother's face. There she was, third row center, talking to Mrs. Chen, her back to the stage. At least one of my daughters has a real future. Her voice carried despite the ceremony. Alicia's so dreamy, so impractical. Good grades don't mean much if you can't function in the real world. Madison caught my eye from the family section and offered a supportive smile. But even from the stage, I could see the slight upturn at her mouth corners. Only Dad was really watching. Only Dad was clapping. When our eyes met, he mouthed, "I'm proud of you," and my throat tightened. 3 months before the wedding, I reached behind the couch for my fallen phone, my fingertips brushing against dust bunnies and lost change. The device was warm in my hand, its screen showing the voice memo app still recording. Something I'd started earlier to practice a work presentation and forgotten about. Voices drifted from the kitchen, Madison's laugh bright and sharp as crystal. Then my mother's voice, lower, more intimate. The tone made me freeze, my body pressed against the back of the couch, like a child hiding from monsters. What I heard in that accidental recording shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. 22 years of my life crumbled in minutes of conversation, each word landing like a physical blow, their voices discussing me with the casual cruelty of people dissecting an insect. Their laughter, genuine, delighted laughter at my pain. Their plans laid out with the precision of military strategy. I sat on my living room floor for hours after listening, my back against the couch, the phone clutched in hands that wouldn't stop shaking. My chest felt hollow, scooped out like all the air had been sucked from my lungs, but underneath the devastation, something else grew. Something cold and patient and sharp as winter. They had given me a weapon. They just didn't know it yet. 2 months before the wedding. Lunch at Chez Laurent, Madison picking at her salad with precision. "I've been thinking about Dad's will," she said without looking up. "It's so unfair to split everything equally. I'm the one who stayed taking care of Mom." My mother nodded. "Madison has always been more responsible about family obligations. Dad wanted us to share equally," I said carefully. "Dad wanted what he thought was best," my mother corrected with patient condescension. "But morality is different from legality, Alicia. Madison has earned the larger share." Their fingers intertwined across the table like conspirators. "Don't worry, Mom. We'll figure something out." 1 month before the wedding. The final dress fitting at Madison's boutique, where the staff treated her like visiting royalty, and me like an unwelcome afterthought. Madison spun in front of the 3-way mirror, her wedding dress catching the light like captured starfire. She was beautiful, I had to admit that. Beautiful in the way that made people stop on the street and stare. "This color really doesn't work with your complexion," she said, studying my reflection with the clinical interest of a scientist examining a failed experiment. "It washes you out completely, but it photographs beautifully on me, and that's what really matters for the pictures." The seamstress, a thin woman with silver hair and kind eyes, knelt to pin my hem. The pale blue fabric, chosen specifically by Madison, made my skin look sallow, lifeless. Could we maybe shorten it to match the other bridesmaids? I asked, watching Sarah's reflection in the next mirror. Her dress hit just above the knee, elegant and flattering. Oh no! My mother interjected, smoothly appearing behind us like a guardian angel of fashion disasters. Alicia's dress is perfect as it is. Different heights require different lengths, and we want everyone to look their best. But Sarah and I were exactly the same height. Her dress made her look graceful, sophisticated. Mine made me look like a child playing dress-up in borrowed clothes. In the mirror, I watched Madison's smile sharpen to a razor's edge. Every detail had been planned, calculated for maximum impact. I was being positioned to fail, and everyone in the room knew it except me. 6 weeks before the wedding. Madison cornered me in the bridal boutique's accessories room, surrounded by tiaras and veils that cost more than my monthly rent. We need to talk about your maid of honor speech. She said, her voice honeyed with false sweetness. My speech? The toast. You'll be giving one at the reception. She pulled out a folded index card from her purse like a magician producing a prop. I've taken the liberty of writing something appropriate, much better than anything you might come up with on your own. I unfolded the card with trembling fingers. 3 sentences. 3 carefully crafted sentences that painted me as the inferior sister, the one who'd always lived in Madison's shadow and was grateful for the privilege. But this makes me sound like what Alicia. Madison's eyebrows arched in perfect innocence. Like someone who understands her place in the family. Like someone who's genuinely happy for her sister's success. Her fingers closed over mine, squeezing just hard enough to hurt. You want to make me happy on my wedding day, don't you? You want everything to be perfect. I wanted to refuse. Wanted to tear up the card and walk away. But the weight of 22 years of conditioning pressed down on my shoulders like a lead blanket. Of course, I heard myself say. Whatever makes you happy. Madison's smile could have powered the city. Perfect. I knew I could count on you. 2 weeks before the wedding. My mother's dining room had been transformed into mission control charts and lists, covering every surface like battle plans. Could you help me with the seating arrangements, dear? She called from behind a fortress of place cards and table numbers. I found her placing names with the precision of a chess master, each card a strategic move in a game I was only beginning to understand. I've put you at table 12, she said without looking up. Behind the Hendersons. You won't mind being out of the photographer's main sight lines, will you? This day is about Madison. Table 12. In the back corner of the ballroom, partially hidden behind a decorative column. I watched as she moved Dad's business partners, people who'd known me since childhood who might speak up for me, to tables at the front of the room. Where should I put Cousin David? I asked, holding his response card. David, who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd slipped me $20 every birthday, who'd always treated me like I mattered. Oh, David can't make it anymore, she said casually, tearing up his RSVP without even glancing at it. Sudden work conflict. Such a shame. He was so looking forward to celebrating with us. But the card in her hands clearly showed attending in David's careful handwriting, along with a note saying how excited he was to see me walk down the aisle. One by one, she eliminated my allies, rearranged the guest list like pieces on a board, isolating me completely. By the time she finished, I would be surrounded by strangers and people who barely knew me, while Madison's supporters filled the prime seats. There, she said with satisfaction, surveying her handiwork. Perfect placement for everyone. Now kneeling on the marble floor with wine soaking through my dress, I felt every carefully planned humiliation crystallize into perfect clarity. The weight of their expectations, their cruelty, their casual dismissal of my worth. All of it had led to this moment. My mother dabbed at the wine stains with her napkin, every gesture calculated for the watching crowd. Poor thing has always been so uncoordinated, she whispered to Mrs. Henderson, her voice pitched to carry just far enough. We've tried everything. Dance lessons, sports coordination therapy. Nothing seems to help. More lies. I'd begged for dance lessons at 7, but she'd claimed we couldn't afford them. 2 weeks later, Madison's new horse arrived with its own private trainer. Madison leaned close to her maid of honor, staging her whisper perfectly. "I almost feel sorry for her," she said loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "She tries so hard to fit in, but she's just different." You know, a collective murmur of sympathy rippled through the watching guests. Poor Alicia. Always the awkward one. No wonder Madison had to work so hard to include her. The performance was flawless, 22 years in the making. Then Madison raised her champagne glass, scanning the room with queenly satisfaction. Her eyes found mine across the ballroom, and for one unguarded instant her mask slipped completely. Pure malice flashed across her features. Anticipation, excitement, the look of a predator about to strike. Then the sweet smile snapped back into place like a Venus flytrap closing. "I want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate the most important day of my life." She began, her voice carrying clearly through the suddenly attentive ballroom. "Showtime." I slipped toward the back of the room, my wine-stained dress leaving a faint trail on the marble. 3 months of preparation, 3 months of sleepless nights, and careful planning all crystallizing into this single moment. The lights dimmed with theatrical precision. The slideshow began with carefully curated innocence. Family photos where I appeared only at the edges, vacation pictures where I'd been cropped out or positioned apart from the group. Then the screen changed and my mother's voice filled the elegant space. I should have gotten rid of that mistake 22 years ago. Unplanned little brat ruined my body and my life. At least now I can ruin hers. The effect was seismic. 200 conversations died mid-syllable. Champagne glasses froze halfway to lips. The room's collective breath seemed to catch and hold. Madison's voice followed bright with malicious anticipation. "We'll humiliate her at the wedding, in front of everyone. She'll be so destroyed she'll never show her face again. Then Dad's inheritance is all ours." A wave of gasps rippled through the ballroom. Someone's wine glass slipped from nerveless fingers, shattering on the floor. The sound echoed like an exclamation point. But I wasn't finished, not even close. More recordings played in devastating succession. Their voices echoing off the chandeliers and marble columns, each revelation hitting the assembled guests like physical blows. "Remember when we convinced her she was allergic to chocolate? 3 years of watching her sit there while other kids ate cake. The honors class's lie was perfect. Daddy says you're not smart enough." She believed every word. She's so desperate for approval, so pathetically grateful for any scraps of attention. It's almost too easy. Their laughter, cruel, delighted laughter, filled every corner of the room. Then came the video I'd recorded that morning, my voice steady and clear as I looked directly into the camera. "My name is Alicia Richardson. For 22 years, I believed my mother loved me. Tonight, you've learned what she really thinks of the daughter she never wanted." The screen went black. Silence descended like a physical weight, pressing down on 200 people, who sat frozen in their chairs, processing what they'd just witnessed. Then Mrs. Patterson whispered, "Dear God," and the dam broke. Her own mother said that 22 years of lies. That poor child. "I think I'm going to be sick." Mr. Henderson rose from his chair with the gravity of a judge pronouncing sentence. "I cannot remain in this room another moment," he announced, his voice carrying clearly through the chaos. "This is unconscionable." The exodus began slowly, then gained momentum like an avalanche. Chairs scraped against marble as guests abandoned their tables, their whispered conversations growing louder with each step toward the exits. Madison lunged for the microphone with desperate hands, mascara streaming down her face in black rivers that stained her perfect white bodice. "It's fake, all of it. She edited everything you can't believe," but her voice cracked on every word, pitched too high, too desperate. Even she seemed to realize how it sounded. My mother chased after departing guests, her heels clicking frantically against the marble like a broken metronome. "Please, you don't understand. It's all taken out of context. She's always been jealous. Always been," but the heavy ballroom doors were already swinging shut behind them, cutting off her pleas mid-sentence. I walked toward the exit with measured steps past the abandoned dance floor, where a few scattered rose petals lay like evidence of interrupted dreams. Past the 5-tiered wedding cake that would never be cut, never be shared, never fulfill its purpose. past Madison, who knelt in her $15,000 gown, beside the head table surrounded by empty chairs, and the echoes of her own recorded cruelty. At the ballroom doors, I turned back for one final look. The destruction was complete. Madison's perfect wedding reduced to a crime scene of social annihilation. My mother collapsed in her chair, watching decades of careful reputation building crumble in real time. Outside, the night air kissed my skin like a blessing. For the first time in 22 years, my lungs expanded fully, drawing in oxygen that tasted like freedom. Behind me, I could hear my mother's voice breaking as she tried desperately to explain the unexplainable to the few remaining staff members who were already looking toward the exits themselves. But there was nothing left to explain. The truth had been told, witnessed, recorded in the memories of 200 people who would carry this story with them forever. This time, I wasn't the forgotten daughter hiding in corners and shadows. I was the one who wrote the ending. And it was beautiful,